Hi, I'm Cassandra Hockman, Communications Coordinator at the Fralin Life Science Institute at Virginia Tech. Today we'll hear from two nutrition researchers about their Healthy Beverage Index, which is a scoring system designed to evaluate overall beverage intake quality. Preliminary analysis shows that the index is associated with reduced cardio-metabolic risk in U.S. adults and is published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Hi, I'm Brenda Davy, and I'm an associate professor at Virginia Tech in the Department of Human Nutrition, Foods, and Exercise.
And I'm Kiyah Duffey, adjunct faculty in the Department of Human Nutrition, Foods, and Exercise, and also the Director of Global Scientific Affairs at LA Sutherland Group.
So your article describes the development and preliminary validation of the Healthy Beverage Index, which could be used to evaluate overall beverage intake quality in adults. How did this idea come about?
Well, sugar-sweetened beverages have received a lot of attention lately, and our national dietary guidelines recommend that we consume water in place of sugary beverages, but consumers may be wondering what exactly they should be drinking. Our goal was to develop a healthy beverage index that would help consumers by providing them with specific information about the types and amounts of beverages that could be consumed to promote optimal health.
And we're both also interested in beverage research and wanted to work together on a project. And in terms of unanswered questions, this was one that interested both of us.
So what are the components of the Healthy Beverage Index, and how are they scored?
So the Healthy Beverage Index is composed of 10 components, including water comprising at least 20% of fluid requirements for 15 points, unsweetened coffee and tea comprising 0 to 40% of fluid requirements for 5 points, skim, low-fat, and soy milk comprising 0 to 16% of fluid requirements for 5 points, artificially sweetened beverages comprising 0 to 16% of fluid requirements for 5 points, 100% fruit juice comprising 0 to 8% of fluid requirements for 5 points, between 0 and 1 drinks for women or 0 and 2 drinks for men of alcohol for 5 points, 0% of fluid requirements coming from 2% or whole fat milk for 5 points, 0 to 8% of fluid requirements coming from sugar sweetened beverages including sodas and fruit drinks and sweetened coffee and tea for 15 points, less than 10% of calories from beverages for 20 points, and meeting total fluid requirements for 20 points.
So your index, your Healthy Beverage Index, is composed of 10 components. That seems complicated for a layperson to understand. So how did you determine these components?
Yeah, there are 10 that are part of the scoring system, but these were recommendations that already existed in a number of different resources. And what we tried to do is pull them all together into a single place that would allow clinicians and dietitians and consumers to think about their overall beverage patterns and to provide a single resource for doing that.
So what does a healthy beverage pattern look like?
Sure. A healthy beverage pattern, or getting a healthy score on this, can come about in a number of different ways. The example that we provide in the paper has an individual consuming 6 glasses of water, 2 cups of unsweetened coffee, and 1 cup of tea, a glass of low-fat milk, and 5 ounces of wine. And in doing this, they also are meeting their total daily fluid requirements, consuming the amount of water that is recommended, as well as consuming fewer than 10% of their daily calories from sugary drinks.
So from your detailed analysis of the components of the Healthy Beverage Index, the average HBI score for U.S. adults is 63 out of 100. So I'm wondering, what are the most significant changes people could make to improve their scores, and what perhaps does typical look like?
Yeah, so there were 3 places where we saw the biggest difference between individuals who had low versus high scores. And that was in not consuming enough water, in consuming too many calories from beverages, or from not consuming enough fluid overall, so not meeting their daily fluid requirements. And so an individual who is looking to improve their score could really focus on those 3 areas to have the biggest impact.
Is there a way to prioritize which changes in consumption could be most beneficial for a person?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we both really like about this is that it is pretty flexible in terms of being able to meet an individual's beverage preferences as well as their health goals. So, for example, a person who really wanted to control their blood sugar could focus on reducing the amount of sugar-sweetened beverages that they're consuming. Whereas someone else may just want to focus on drinking more water, which we know has a number of health benefits associated.
So it's really designed to be tailored to the individual.
Yes, the information coming from it absolutely can be used to help individuals tailor their own changes.
Does your index allow a person to trade off one component then for another in this being tailored to an individual, such as drinking water, instead of consuming a higher fat content for milk, for example?
There is flexibility in the system, and there are some beverage categories that an individual could choose not to consume at all. For example, diet sodas or alcohol, and yet they would still receive the maximum number of points for that category. So a high score can be achieved in a variety of ways. The most critical components, though, to receiving a high score were consuming adequate amounts of water, limiting sugar-sweetened beverages, and also limiting the overall number of calories that were coming from beverages.
Can you tell us about the NHANES survey, which is one of the main sources in your study?
Sure. NHANES is the National Nutrition and Health Examination Survey, and it is a series of in-depth interviews as well as in-person physical exams. It's conducted every 2 years in the United States in individuals who are ages 2 and older. And NHANES remains really one of the best data sources we have for answering questions about the relationship between diet and health. And for our purposes, we were able to use these data to look at the relationship between higher or lower HBI scores. And we find that individuals who had a higher score also had lower levels of blood glucose and blood cholesterol, as well as having lower levels of having lower blood pressure.
Nutritionally, diet beverages seem to be equivalent to water, yet they are a separate component in your index. Can you tell us about that?
There is some controversy there, and water may be a better choice, but there have been a few studies that have shown that when individuals replace sugar-sweetened beverages with diet sodas, that allows them to reduce their calorie intake and even lose weight. So in the Healthy Beverage Index, water and artificially sweetened drinks such as diet sodas are separate categories. An individual could still choose not to consume diet sodas, but still receive the maximum number of points for that category. So it's an individual choice.
Although this is the first attempt at such an index, how might it be improved going forward to maximize benefit to consumers?
We would like to develop a rapid assessment tool that consumers and practitioners could use to quickly evaluate someone's beverage intake, perhaps something that could be administered online.
Yeah, it's also important to evaluate this scoring system over time. So to look and see whether improvements in the HBI score are also associated with improvements in health. And science is an iterative process, and this is just a first attempt at creating a system like this. And so as nutrition science evolves, we will continue to evaluate the individual components of the system as well as the scoring itself, and make changes to the system as new evidence comes to light.
Yeah, and what are some implications for dietitians to use this in their practice?
So dietitians could use the system to evaluate their client or patient's current beverage consumption habits, as well as to recommend changes to improve their health over time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Special thanks for this podcast goes to the Virginia Tech College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, the Department of Human Nutrition, Foods, and Exercise, the Fralin Life Science Institute, and the Fralin Translational Obesity Research Center at Virginia Tech.